Hello, everyone. So, Star Trek Discovery is actually very good. It's about on its third episode, and by now I'm assuming that the people that are interested in Star Trek have probably started to watch it. So, hopefully, I'm not spoiling uh, anything for anyone. But when you look at the pretty much the cover or the artist illustration for season one, you notice something very interesting. It's the whole all seeing eye thing. And I'm definitely one of the people that thought that all these Illuminati conspiracy people were crazy. Like, okay, you guys, how can there be that many crazy people out there? But when you look at season one for Star Trek Discovery, maybe Google season one for Star Trek of Discovery, and you're going to basically see this. The whole Vulcan thing, I think I got to have my thumb out. The whole Vulcan live long and prosper thing. But then in the cover, you basically have this. The one eye whole thingy. Can't keep my eye open long enough to do it. But the all seeing eye, the same thing that you have on a dollar bill, the same thing that you have with entertainers covering one eye, with models covering one eye, with musicians covering one eye. You have all this going on. So let's talk a little bit about Star Trek Discovery, because I don't want to just flood everything that's going on with all the people covering their eye, flood it all together because it makes things confusing. Let's just talk about Star Trek Discovery. So you think, okay, uh, the first officer is essentially covering her eye and showing the all-seeing eye on the cover. That doesn't mean anything, which is what I thought. Then you start to watch the show, and essentially the character, this is where I don't want to spoil it if you have not seen it at all. I'm not going to get into too many details of the show, but yeah, you might want to watch some of it before we get too much further. But when you watch the show thinking that the all-seeing eye being used as the display doesn't mean anything, you essentially have the character of Lucifer developed in this show. Sounds crazy. Hear me out here. The first officer is Michael. Now, Michael is a female. You might think, why did all these smart people decide to name a female Michael? Makes no sense because it's not a female name, but the name carries significance because you may remember that Michael is a chief archangel in heaven. Okay, we get that. Now let's go on with the show, right? Doesn't have anything to do with anything. Well, as the character is continually developed in this series, you see that there are certain rules, regulations. Let's consider space to be heaven. This is where all this is taking place, in outer space, because that's Star Trek. Let's consider space to be heaven, and there's certain rules and regulations that one has to abide by because you're in Starfleet. Well, Michael breaks those rules. Michael goes against the rules and regulations set in heaven. By heaven, I'm looking at outer space. By order in heaven, I'm looking at Starfleet. And there, keep in mind, I used to think all these people saying this stuff are crazy. These people are like all nuts. Like, what's wrong with them? It's in plain sight, essentially. All seeing eye, first officer, second in command, really high up, named Michael. Michael breaks the rules that were set for people to abide by in heaven. And then there is a war in heaven. Michael starts a war in heaven. This all sounds real familiar, right? Then Michael is stripped of rank and essentially descends. Who does this sound like? It sounds like Lucifer, right? It sounds like essentially they're saying that Michael was Lucifer. Michael got kicked out of heaven for starting a war and was sent down as Lucifer. Let's continue on. Now, anybody that is a ex-cult member, period, or Jehovah's Witness, which is a cult, will recognize completely what is going on in episode 3. In episode 3, everyone hates Michael, who is essentially Lucifer now. But everyone hates Michael, and there is shunning that takes place. You will recognize the shunning if you are a Jehovah's Witness, because it is what we grew up with. It's hard for me to view Jehovah's Witnesses as Christian because they don't really get involved with any kind of charitable giving, and forgiveness is not really preached. It is the opposite, which is shunning, which is the focal point, really, of the whole religion is turning on your relatives, turning on your friends, turn on anyone that speaks ill of that particular organization. You're going to recognize episode 3, shunning. Everyone hates this individual who was a very high-ranking person in heaven, let's say. Because again, heaven is outer space, is my analogy here. Very high-ranking person. Everybody now hates them, and they're Lucifer and whatnot. But now what you're going to recognize is that as a viewer, you're not going to hate the person that everyone is shunning. As a matter of fact, you watching this show are going to empathize with the person being shunned. You're going to empathize with the character of Lucifer here. You're not going to feel a connection with the people that are saying essentially that Lucifer is bad. So, First Officer Michael is stripped of rank and everything, but is so intelligent, so valuable, that even with that rank stripped, everyone is recognizing this person as being highly intelligent. So much so that they use her anyway on a starship. What do a lot of occultists or some of the occultists that I've heard from say? When you contact a person from the spirit realm, it doesn't matter if it's an angel or a demon. They're going to be more intelligent than a human. You're essentially contacting someone that is valuable regardless of whether they're good or evil, because their abilities exceed yours, their intellect exceeds yours. If you can get any information from them or anything from them, that would be good or useful. So in this show, they're extracting knowledge from Lucifer. She's so smart that they're using her to decode things and everything else. She's just too talented not to extract information from and not to use. So I don't know if in the show they're saying that occult not is too valuable. Occult knowledge is too valuable to not extract knowledge from it. But near the end of the show, Michael says, essentially, I'm not going to quote exactly, up is down and down is up. Essentially saying good can be bad, bad can be good. I guess in the show they're essentially saying, so far, Lucifer has been cast in a bad light for a wrong reason. That there's really nothing wrong with Lucifer. Lucifer wasn't trying to do anything evil, wasn't trying to be evil when that war was started, was actually trying to do good and was cast down unjustly. I'm basically interpreting my view of what the occult meaning is in this show, and it is blatant. You cannot watch this show, look at the cover for season 1, and say, oh, there's nothing occult there. It is blatant, which leads to my next point. Is one of the things that sounds crazy to people is that you have all these rich entertainers and even athletes, because I've seen Magic Johnson on the cover of a magazine doing the whole, covering up one eye and doing this whole thing. You would look at it and say they have no reason to do that. They're rich. Magic Johnson was such a skilled basketball player. He was going to be in the NBA and making millions of money regardless of whether he did that or not. Like, that didn't have anything. Logically, you're saying these people are rich. Why would they be doing any of that? How does it benefit them? Like Chris Brown, somebody that can rap, sing, dance, he can do everything. Why would he be performing in front of a big triangle and Beyonce, as talented and attractive as she is? Why would she be throwing up these signs and things like that? It's not like this is where your wealth is coming from or your talent is coming from. It is super talented people are all doing this. Well, logically, from my perspective, comment down below and let me know what you think. But from my perspective, the only logical explanation for this is that these people are popular. That is why you would want them to be throwing up those symbols. That is why you would want them to be showing the all-seeing eye, or the eye that's on, the $1 bill, whatever you want to call it. People call it different things, but you know what I'm speaking of. You want to saturate the public with that image. I don't know that the people that are doing it are benefiting necessarily from doing it because they're already rich. There's the whole, well, if you don't do it, somebody's going to kill you thing. That's hard to believe. However, what is not hard to believe is that you have the images in the fashion industry. There's a whole video on YouTube about the fashion industry. You have all these images in the fashion industry. Why? Because people are going to see it. You have all these images in the music industry. Why? Because people are going to see it. So essentially, let's hit the public, as many people as possible, with these images. They're not going to turn them away. They're not going. It's not like this is going to go unnoticed. Why? Because you like Jay-Z. So if a person likes Jay-Z, they're going to accept, they're going to look at whatever it is that he's portraying. If you like Beyonce, you're going to watch her. You're going to sit and you're going to watch while she does all these images and whatnot. If you like Star Trek, and they are essentially developing the story of not not just Michael, but Lucifer on the show and showing the all-seeing eye, you're going to accept it and you're going to watch it anyway because you like it. So my logic is the purpose behind all of this is to display whatever these meanings are to people. I don't know if they're essentially like, okay, we're going to teach these people these essentially a different religion, and how are we going to do it? Well, television, they're going to watch it. Some of the images, let's show them through musicians. They all like the musician, so they're going to watch the musician, and they're not regardless. So that's who we want to have advertise all these images and whatnot. Now, overall, I don't know what the purpose behind all this stuff is. You guys let me know what you think it is. I think that from what I have seen on YouTube with other people discussing it, there is a flaw that I see in their reasoning, and that is you have a lot of people who are Christian trying to interpret something that is occult. That's going to be difficult because for a Christian, the occult is evil. For a Christian, anything outside of Christianity is evil and the devil. So for a Christian to interpret all these people covering their eye and showing the all-seeing eye and what's going on in these industries, they're essentially going to connect it to Satan, even if the people who are involved in these things aren't connecting it to Satan. So you're going to have essentially a bad translation of what's going on. Like when they try to figure out what's going on with the Freemasons, they connect it all to the devil. But if the Freemasons in their teaching don't feel like Lucifer has anything to do with Satan, then you are misunderstanding what they are portraying. So you got all these people who are Christian and they show all these Bible scriptures, and then they show what they see in the fashion industry and the music industry and everything else, and it's contrary to what they're about. So it's the devil. And that's the turnoff for me because, I know that I can't interpret what I see going on in other countries based off my understanding of how things should be in America. If you go to Korea and everybody's taking off their shoes before going into a house, you connect it to just stupidity because you could just walk in. Why? Because that's what we do in America. It's a different culture. You have to look at it from their perspective. So with all these things going on, if it is a cult, it is a different religion. It's a different understanding. You have to look at it from that perspective or that angle. Or Freemasonry, you have to look at it from a perspective of a Freemason, not the perspective of a Christian who thinks everything outside of Christianity is Satan, the devil. So the concept that these people are basically trying to take over the world by showing people things on television, it doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. I want to take over the world. So I'm going to put a Star Trek show on with the all-seeing eye. That'll help me take over No, that doesn't make any sense. There's nothing to do with it. You have people that are in charge of the banking system and things like that, the Federal Reserve, and people connect them to these musicians and people like that. I don't know what that connection would be. The only thing that would make sense is that the concept of a new religion or desensitizing people to Christianity, trying to get basically people out of Christianity, is being done through things that people like and things that people consume regularly, which is the television and which is music and which is fashion. That makes sense that they're trying to dull people's connection to Christianity. Why? Well, Christianity might hurt the industry, because people aren't going to listen to things if they're hardcore Christian and it's got all this profanity in it and sex in it and whatnot. We all, that these box office movies make plenty of money, even though there's supposedly all these Christians. So there's plenty of people going to go watch it, but it's trying to figure out why are all these people showing the all seeing? There's got to be a logical explanation. Not that the devil is controlling them all. That doesn't really make sense, because then the devil would just go, it doesn't make sense that there's some two-horned fiery person having these people sign contracts who are already rich. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, or that are already super talented and are going to be rich because of it. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But my view of it is that you have people mixing Christianity with their interpretation of what they see going on, causing them to come up with the wrong view of it. You have the Bohemian Grove thing and whatnot, and the owl, and if you try to look at it from a Christian perspective, it's just going to scare you. It's basically just going to scare a bunch of Christians, and you're not going to figure out what's going on. But if essentially you have people getting into essentially other religions, they're interested in other religions outside of Christianity, then that makes sense that they have that owl there, and it makes sense that they want to keep that somewhat secretive, because it's going to scare the Christians. You guys, again, Star Trek Discovery is good so far, and all these things with regards to the story of Lucifer being developed, it is seemingly blatant to me. And they virtually, if you're not catching on by looking at the images in the show and the plot, they virtually spell it out to you. It's like, okay, if you're not smart enough to start figuring out, we'll just go ahead and start spelling it out to you what we're doing. It's still good. The show itself is still good. But again, I thought that these people were crazy. There's obviously something going on, because the producers of Star Trek, people were going to watch it. They're going to make plenty of money whether or not the cover was somebody showing the all-seeing eye. It's just, it doesn't benefit them from a stance of making money. They do that anyway. The only thing that does is introduce it to even more people that hadn't already seen it. So why? That's what I'm trying to figure out. You guys let me know what you think. Comment down below. 937-789-4029. Shoot me a text. Let me know what you think. Marcus signing out.